You're not broke because you spend too much on a morning coffee. And you're definitely not broke because you didn't invent the next big billion-dollar tech startup. The uncomfortable truth? The system? Well, it was never actually designed for you to win. Not unless you understand the invisible rules it secretly operates on. Welcome to USA Rift. I am absolutely pumped to guide you through this explainer today because what we're about to unpack, it's going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about money, wealth, and power in the United States. We're living in a time of just unprecedented economic friction. Housing costs have totally decoupled from reality, wages have completely flatlined against actual purchasing power, and the middle class, they're getting squeezed from both sides. Today, we're going to look at the raw, unfiltered data behind why high-income earners are secretly drowning in debt, while average, everyday workers are quietly building multi-million-dollar fortunes right under our noses. Okay, let's dive into the details, but before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and comment down below with what you thought. Your support literally means everything. And hey, support the channel by becoming a channel member so we can keep bringing you these deep, cinematic dives into the truth. All right, let's pull back the curtain.
So I want to start by asking you something directly. Are you wealthy or are you just comfortable? Think about that for a second. There is a massive and honestly terrifying psychological weight attached to that question. Most of us spend our entire lives running on this endless treadmill, chasing a finish line that just keeps moving further and further away. You grind, you get the promotion, you get the raise, but somehow, when you check your bank account, it never really reflects the sheer exhaustion you feel by Friday afternoon. You pay the mortgage, you lease the car, you buy the groceries, and you quietly tell yourself, hey, we're doing okay. But there is a haunting difference between just surviving the American economy and actually conquering it. Let's look at the hard numbers to see exactly what I mean. This is from the 2025 Charles Schwab Modern Wealth Survey, and the chasm here is just wild. Right now, Americans are saying it takes an average net worth of $839,000 just to feel financially comfortable. I really want to let that sink in. Nearly $1 million in net worth just to feel like you can finally take a deep breath. But to actually be considered wealthy, to win the game, that number skyrockets to $2.3 million. That is a $1.5 million gulf between simply not having a panic attack when the transmission blows on your car and actually having true financial autonomy. And here is the brutal reality of the situation. Inflation has completely warped our perception of wealth. The starting line to real financial security feels further away than ever before. Decades of central bank policies and asset inflation have effectively devalued the currency, which means $1 million simply doesn't buy the freedom it did, say, 20 years ago. The goalposts haven't just moved, they've been picked up and placed in an entirely different stadium. So how do we bridge that gap? Well, the very first step is destroying the lies we've been fed since childhood. Let's move into Section 1, the illusion of wealth. Rich parents or crime? The whole system's rigged. Most people don't make it from the bottom. I guarantee you've seen comments exactly like this scrolling online. Maybe, and let's be honest here, in your darkest, most stressful financial moments, you've even thought something similar yourself. It's a completely pervasive cultural illusion. We are bombarded day in and day out with this narrative that wealth is some exclusive, velvet-roped VIP club built entirely on inheritance, nepotism, and just blind luck. We see the billionaires on the news. We see the trust fund kids flexing on social media. And it creates this toxic, deeply ingrained belief that if you weren't born with a silver spoon, the game is basically over before you even roll the dice. But what if that belief is exactly what the system wants you to think? Because think about it. The financial system thrives when you accept defeat. It wants you to be a perpetual consumer, not an owner. It absolutely needs you to be hyper-focused on the next paycheck, the next streaming subscription, the next massive car payment. Because as long as you believe the game is totally rigged, you won't ever try to learn the actual rules. That brings us to Section 2, the median reality. We need to shift the narrative away from all that emotion and look straight into the cold, hard data. Now, the system is indeed skewed, but I promise you, it's not skewed in the way you probably think it is. Take a look at this Federal Reserve data for people aged 65 to 74. This is the retirement generation, the folks at the finish line. If you look at the average net worth, it sits at $1.79 million. Sounds amazing, right? It makes it sound like almost everyone is retiring as a multimillionaire, sailing off into the sunset. But you can't buy groceries with an average. Look at the median net worth, the actual exact middle-of-the-pack American. That number is only $438,700. So why is there a $1.3 million discrepancy? It's because a tiny, microscopic fraction of ultra-rich individuals, the billionaires and the decamillionaires, are artificially inflating the average. They drag the math upward, and by doing so, they actively mask the financial struggle of the everyday working class. That $438,000, that has to last the median worker for the rest of their natural life. Factor in compounding healthcare costs, sticky inflation, and relentless property taxes, and that number represents a terrifying vulnerability. For the median worker, after 40 long years of grinding labor, that is quite literally all they have to show for it. And guys, it gets deeper. 4.7%. I want to take a breath here and just let this absolute bombshell of a statistic wash over you. According to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, only 4.7% of Americans actually have $1 million in dedicated retirement savings. Think about the sheer scale of that failure. In the wealthiest nation on the planet, 95.3% of the population will never see a seven-figure retirement account. That 95.3% is trapped. It means working until your physical body gives out. It means relying almost entirely on a drastically underfunded Social Security system that, let's be real, was never designed to be anyone's sole source of survival. It means having to move in with your adult children or silently suffocating under a mountain of medical debt in your final years. The system is ruthless. It filters out almost everyone. Which brings us to the central twist of this entire explainer today. If the system is so incredibly brutal, and if less than 5% actually make it, who exactly makes up that exclusive percentage? Who are these people? Let's uncover them in Section 3, the invisible millionaires. 79%. Do you remember that quote we looked at earlier, the whole rich parents or crime thing? Well, Ramsey Solutions conducted the largest study of millionaires ever done. They surveyed 10,000 of them. And the data revealed with absolute mathematical certainty that a staggering 79% of millionaires received absolutely zero inheritance. Zero. Not a trust fund, not a massive real estate portfolio passed down from their grandfather, not a single solitary dime from their parents. This completely shatters the myth of the elite bloodlines that the media loves to push. The vast, overwhelming majority of wealth in America is self-made, first-generation money. It's built quietly, it's built intentionally, and it's built completely without a safety net. Let's contrast that Hollywood perception against the startling reality of the situation. The myth tells us that to be a millionaire, you need to go to an Ivy League private school, become a C-suite executive, and pull down massive six-figure salaries with crazy stock options. But the reality? 62% of millionaires went to standard public state schools. The top careers that actually produce millionaires, they aren't investment bankers or tech founders. They are teachers, accountants, engineers, just everyday professionals. And get this, 33% of these millionaires never made a six-figure salary in any single working year of their entire careers. Let me repeat that. A third of them never made over $100,000 a year, yet they build multi-million-dollar empires on ordinary incomes.
So how the heck does a public school teacher become a millionaire while a corporate lawyer goes bankrupt? Well, here is the real wealth formula. I warn you, it's incredibly boring, but it's incredibly effective. 80% of them relentlessly invested in their company's 401k plan. They just took the employer match, planted the seed early, and let the compound interest tree grow over decades. They understood that time in the market mathematically destroys trying to time the market. 94% of them live strictly on less than they make. They created a permanent, uncrossable margin between their ego and their income. And 75% never carried a credit card balance. Now think about the mechanics of that. When you carry a balance at 24% interest, you are actively paying a massive premium to a bank just to pretend you have a lifestyle you can't afford. It violently rips away your monthly cash flow. These invisible millionaires, they simply refuse to participate in that charade. They systematically applied a highly disciplined framework of long-term investing and absolute debt avoidance. But if the formula is so simple, why do so few people actually do it? Section 4, the psychology of creep. The answer to that question is lifestyle creep. It's the phenomenon where your discretionary spending, quietly, almost invisibly, increases at the exact same pace as your career income, completely eliminating any investment surplus. It functions exactly like a black hole, pulling in cars, credit cards, and all your extra cash. And I want you to really understand this. This is not just a simple budgeting error. It is a deeply ingrained psychological reflex. As humans, we are wired to upgrade our status. When we earn more, we genuinely feel we deserve more. It is the silent killer of wealth. You make more money, but you actually feel poorer because that black hole expands to consume every single extra dollar you generate. Let's walk through this insidious cycle together because this right here is exactly how the system traps professionals during their absolute peak earning years. Step 1, the raise. You work hard, you get the big promotion, your income goes up. You feel incredible. You finally made it. Step 2, the upgrade. You tell yourself, I've earned this. I deserve a reward. So you trade in the reliable paid-off car for the luxury SUV lease. You move to a slightly nicer neighborhood with a bigger mortgage. You start buying premium brands. Suddenly, without you even noticing, yesterday's luxury has become today's non-negotiable baseline necessity. And finally, step 3, the trap.
You are now making $150,000, maybe even $200,000 a year. But because your lifestyle expanded to consume every single dollar, you are still living paycheck to paycheck. You are running faster on the treadmill, sweating more, working longer hours, just to stay in the exact same place. You have essentially built a prison out of premium leather and high-end zip codes. And the terrifying part? Accumulating the money is only half the battle. Surviving the wealth-building phase doesn't actually mean you're safe. The real, existential financial danger begins when it's finally time to cash out.
Which brings us to Section 5, the decumulation trap. You have probably heard of the golden rule of retirement math. It's called the 4% rule. Introduced by a financial advisor named Bill Bengen back in 1994, this became the holy grail benchmark that almost everyone relies on to calculate their financial freedom. Bengen looked at historical market data stretching from the 1920s to the 1970s, going straight through the Great Depression and multiple severe recessions. His math concluded that if you want your money to last a full 30-year retirement, you can safely withdraw 4% of your total portfolio in year one and then manually adjust that exact dollar amount every year to keep pace with inflation. Now, it sounds safe, it sounds incredibly scientific, but it hides massive structural flaws for the modern economy. This rule is essentially bound to a rigid, unmoving split. Exactly 50% large-cap stocks and exactly 50% intermediate government bonds. This is the exact theoretical portfolio balance this rule was built on. But I want you to just stop and think about how completely out of touch this is with modern investment realities. In today's highly volatile markets, with unpredictable interest rate cycles, high-frequency algorithmic trading, and totally erratic inflation spikes, locking yourself into a static 50-50 portfolio can be incredibly dangerous. The 4% rule was built in a sterile 1990s laboratory, but you have to survive in the chaotic real world. Let's deconstruct exactly why this old math is failing modern retirees right now. First, it assumes rigid, identical spending every single year. But life isn't linear. You might have huge, unexpected medical bills one year requiring a massive capital pull, and then spend almost nothing the next. Second, it heavily relies on the unusually high historical market returns from the 20th century. If the next 10 years of the stock market are flat, which is entirely possible, that strict 4% withdrawal rate will rapidly cannibalize your principal balance. And third, and honestly, this is the absolute kicker, it completely ignores the massive, suffocating impact of taxes and fees. Between the IRS siphoning funds and the wealth manager taking their cut, your golden piggy bank gets cracked right down the middle. If you blindly rely on this 4% formula without meticulously accounting for taxation and advisory fees, you are going to face premature portfolio depletion. You could see a shocking 20 to 30% reduction in your actual usable net income. Now, let's look at the cold, hard reality of what your money actually buys you today. This is a breakdown of investable net worth. Now, by investable, I mean liquid cash and stocks. We aren't counting the equity tied up in your primary residence because, well, you can't buy groceries with your drywall. If you have $1 million saved, which sounds like lottery money to most people, the safe pre-tax income is around $104,000. But after the government takes its cut, you are living on $98,000. It's solid, but it's not private jet money. Now look closely at the bottom row, $5.0 million. This is a frankly unfathomable amount of money for most people to amass. The estimated pre-tax income on $5 million is $320,000. But after taxes, that massive $5 million fortune is aggressively slashed down to $280,000 in safe, spendable cash. Think about the gravity of that math. You grind your entire life. You make incredibly disciplined choices. You sacrifice and you save $5 million in liquid cash, and your reward is just a solid upper-tier salary. It shows you exactly how fast millions evaporate in the real world when they are exposed to the twin engines of taxation and inflation. The system simply demands an incredible amount of capital just to produce a comfortable lifestyle. We have looked at the myths, we've looked at the median data, the psychology of lifestyle creep, and the brutal math of decumulation. It's time to bring this narrative to its climax. We are connecting all this massive systemic data right back to your personal autonomy. Section 6, the final truth. Wealth is not defined by the magnitude of your income, it is defined by the consistency of your discipline. The system is heavily skewed. Inflation is absolutely punishing. Taxes are draining. That is all true. But the data unequivocally proves that ordinary people, teachers, accountants, everyday workers are navigating this exact same flawed system and coming out as millionaires. They do it because they escape the consumption loop. They flat out refuse to let lifestyle creep steal their future.
They understand deeply that a high salary doesn't make you rich. Keeping your money makes you rich. The system, for all its faults, rewards those who master their own psychology, regardless of what their starting salary was. Which leaves us with one final lingering thought. You've seen the numbers today. You know the formula. The system isn't keeping you broke. Are you? I really want you to take a hard look at your daily financial choices. Look at the cars sitting in your driveway. Look at the endless subscriptions on your credit card statement, the things you buy just to impress people you don't even like. Ask yourself, are you building an empire or are you just building a cage? It is time to finally take control. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive explainer today on USA Rift. If this shifted your perspective even a little bit, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and comment down below on what you thought. Also, support the channel by becoming a channel member and take the power back into your own hands. I'll see you in the next one.